2-year-olds going a mile and a 16th at Los Alamitos Racecourse. The 5th race on Saturday, the Grade 1 Los Al Futurity, a field of 6 signed on. Bob Baffert, well represented. What else is new? He had 2 of the big chances in here. They ended up being the 2 post-time favorites, one of them being Improbable, who went off at odds of 1-5, the other being Mucho Gusto, the second choice, who went off at odds of 4-1. Mucho Gusto figured to showcase himself early with his speed. Improbable, the question was, how would Drayden Van Dyke get him out off of the inside, and how would he perform going 2 turns for the first time? We got a pretty emphatic answer, the stretch run of the Los Al Futurity.
In with a shot, it is wide open at the top of the stretch. Here comes Improbable to join the leaders. Improbable down the stand side, challenging stablemate Mucho Gusto, and he's taken over. Improbable to the outside of Mucho Gusto, who's trying to battle back to the inside, and the 2 Baffert trainees have pulled away from the others, but it's Improbable doing the best work. Improbable well on his way to remain undefeated, and now a Grade 1 winner. Fantastic in the Futurity. He won by almost 5.
Improbable gets the job done and remains perfect. He is 3 of 3 lifetime and now a Grade 1 winner, winning the Cash Call Futurity. He gets the job done over Mucho Gusto. It's a Baffert exacta. The 3rd place finisher, Extra Hope, he gets there at 15-1. Let's take a look at Improbable. He's a perfect 3 of 3 again. He is just under $270,000 in career earnings. Owned by Windstar Farm, LLC, China Horse Club, International Limited, and Starlight Racing. Trained by Bob Baffert, bred by St. George Farm, LLC, and G. Watts Humphrey Jr. in Kentucky. Ridden to victory by Drayden Van Dyke, and you can see the pedigree. He is by City Zip out of an AP Indy mare named Rare Event 96. Buyer speed figure for Improbable, winning the Futurity. Boy, there's really not a lot to knock about this. And you know, ho-hum, Baffert has another monster on his hands, or it looks like he could end up being a monster. I love the progression of this horse. I think the thing that is most fascinating to me, and this is my opinion, I'd be curious to know other people's thoughts. Again, you can fire away underneath the video player on YouTube or on Twitter at Bernier_Matt. I don't think we have seen the best of this horse, and I don't mean that from the obvious standpoint that he's a 2-year-old and he'll continue to grow and mature as he gets older. I still think he's quite green. I still think he's figuring some things out. He needs to be ridden. He needs to be asked. He did some things better this time around. You'll remember in the preview edition, I went through and I went and did the whole deep dive with the replays and with my formulator notes and the whole 9. And my concern was twofold with a horse like this. He's never, or I shouldn't say never, he'd only run twice. He had never been the best out of the gate. He never broke super alertly. This time around on Saturday, broke very alertly, but was willing to come to hand down the front side the first time. And my question then became, in those first 2 starts, didn't seem like he really, I don't want to say he resented the kickback, but he was climbing a little bit, and it wasn't the smoothest motion with kickback. Well, same scenario here on Saturday. Early on, when he got that kickback, a little bit of a climbing action down the front side, but then you had a little bit of an issue with Savagery not taking the corner very well. He goes out, it forces Extra Hope incredibly wide, it forces Dueling just impossibly wide. We'll talk about those 2 again at the very end. And in turn, now all of a sudden, Improbable is able to move up, gets that nice sort of pocket position. Drayden Van Dyke at that point angles him off the rail, and the horse is pulling a little bit. He's a little bit keen. Drayden's got to give him the full Nelson, but then he relaxes very kindly down the backside, keeps him well off the rail. We know that's where you'd like to be at Los Alamitos. 5-6 paths off the rail. Rounding the far turn, Drayden needs to push on him just a little bit, but once he does, the engine starts cooking, and then the most impressive part, everyone has talked about it, the way that this horse extends down the lane, and the gallop out was sensational. This looks like he could be, you know, I said it kind of tongue-in-cheek, but there's some truth to it. Ho-hum, Baffert has another one that looks like he's going to be the best of the best, and this goes along with a horse like Mucho Gusto, who ran quite well. I mean, he ran a winning race in here. He was no match for his uncoupled stablemate, but look, he was 3 lengths clear of the rest of the field. And then Coliseum, a horse that Baffert has sitting in the barn waiting to go for Godolphin. So, you know, it is what it is. And you know, there's no real way to fix this problem, I don't believe anyway. But, you know, it is one of those things where you look at it, and I said it in the preview. You know, I'm picking Extra Hope. I don't have much interest in trying to beat Baffert at this point. I can say the same thing with Chad in the turf races. You know, when they show up, I don't have a ton of interest in trying to beat them, just because more likely than not, they're going to get it done. So, you know, it is what it is. These races, to me, don't become wagering affairs. They become spectacles, and they become more about the performances that you can see from the athletes out there as opposed to potentially trying to make a buck or two. The good news is you still have 6, 7, 8 other races on the card, so it's not the end of the world. But it is something to keep an eye on going forward, because I don't know that this is necessarily a great thing that the best of the best continue to get the best of the best. But there's a reason that they keep getting the best of the best, because they are the best. Baffert did a great job with this horse, continues to improve. And like I said, I think the thing that is most intriguing about Improbable is that I think there is still plenty of room for improvement when he just continues to mature and continues to grow and figure things out. If he ever gets to the point where the kickback, where he becomes completely comfortable with that sort of thing, and I'm sure in time, the sort of, that little eagerness early on, once he does find a little bit of daylight, that'll go away in time. Once that does, boy, you're looking at what could be a monster. He finishes in 30-17. You look at Mucho Gusto, the runner-up. Now, granted, he was the one cutting out the fractions, 23-1, 47-1, 10-4 for 3/4. They stopped the clock in 41 flat. He comes home in 31-21, so an entire second slower. There's nothing to knock about this effort from Improbable. I thought he was visually very impressive, and he continues on this upward trajectory that looks like, let's call a spade a spade. I can't say that. I can't say let's call a spade a spade. To me, he has been more impressive visually, maybe so, than Game Winner. Now, Game Winner's a little bit more battle tested, and we saw that, and I like that. I think if you can get a horse hardened, that goes a long way. But Improbable hasn't been tested because there's been no one even in his ballpark, with the exception of that career debut. And again, maybe you do want to give him a little bit more credit. I said it was just kind of a grindy, determined effort. Maybe that's actually more impressive than I thought it was at face value. All around, just a very exciting prospect going forward. He looks like he could be the real deal. Mucho Gusto, you have to feel a little bit bad for him. He went out there, he ran a winning race, just couldn't hold off his uncoupled stablemate. Very nice horse, gutsy, determined effort from him. Extra Hope, I picked this horse, but again, I wasn't betting on him. I threw a couple dollars on him at 15-1. It wasn't anything that I was going to go deep into because I didn't think necessarily he was a likely upsetter. I shouldn't say that. I didn't think there was a high probability of him defeating both Bafferts. But I did look at it and say, you know what? I thought this was a fine enough effort. He actually finished with some interest as well. Finished slightly faster than Mucho Gusto did. I think he's a nice horse. I think 2 turns is his game. He's plateaued a little bit as far as buyers are concerned. That's a little bit of an issue for me. But again, these are soon to be 3-year-olds. Wherever they show up next, I'd imagine they take a step forward. Brought up Savagery. He blew that turn going into the first, and that affected Extra Hope and Dueling. Extra Hope not nearly as much as Dueling, but it was enough for me to put Dueling in my horse watch on DRF.com because, going into that first turn, he must have been in the 15 path. And at that point, even if you didn't love his chances coming into this race, you have to just give him the benefit of the doubt and say when he gets placed in a more reasonable spot next time, this certainly compromised any chance of him running very, very well. King of Speed, back to the turf. I think he'll be greatly suited for that. I think that's going to be ultimately where his game is. But really, this story was about Baffert. Baffert continues to roll along. Improbable continues to roll along. To me, the most impressive 2-year-old performance that we have seen so far, and the speed figure would sort of back that up. A 96 Beyer speed figure for Improbable, winning the Grade 1 Los Alamitos Futurity. You have to look at him and say, if he's not the favorite right now, and I know we are months out, it's probably much too early, I think anyway, to really be talking Derby. But if you're looking for, if you are someone that's inclined to look at futures and you're looking at making a wager well in advance and trying to get a price. Problem is you're not going to get any price on a horse like Improbable, but you have to acknowledge the fact that he is very likely one of the best 2-year-olds, soon to be 3-year-olds of his generation, and he might actually be the outright best. Improbable, very, very impressive, winning the Los Al Futurity with a 96 Beyer.